students. I want to share with you a couple of aspects of how we're doing the class this quarter that I think would be important for you to know. The first one is that I have a number of videos that I did in 2021 that I've been going back through, and I like them. I think they're good. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. So what I'm planning to do is to leave those videos there for you as terms of our main content videos. But every week I am planning to do an update video at the beginning that responds to who you are and what's happening in terms of your learning process. So I'm going to build the bridge in these update videos between the content that I have created in the past that I think is still relevant and your need to answer specific questions in order to fully understand and utilize the content. So that's the first thing that I want you to know, and this is the update video for the first week when I don't know you yet, so I don't know the specific content that you will need, but I have a few other pieces of information that I want to share with you. So one difference between when these videos were made and right now is that we are, ojalá primero Dios, we are post-pandemic. And of course, the reason why I put the question mark here is that we are not completely post-pandemic. And depending on where you are in the world, it has a big impact on how post-pandemic your community is. So before the pandemic, I used to require, in terms with respect to the direct learning assignments, the organizational study, I used to require that you would actually participate in an activity of that organization. And then during the pandemic, that just wasn't possible. Some organizations were offering the option of online activities, and I encouraged people to do them, but since not all organizations were, I felt like I couldn't really require that participation. But the students that did participate in any kind of activity, even an online activity, understood the organization more deeply and were able to do a more effective analysis. So what does that mean in 2022? It means that I want to encourage you that if where you live and work is post-pandemic to the extent that there are opportunities to directly experience the work of the organization you're studying, I would love for you to do that. However, since we are not necessarily post-pandemic everywhere that you are, I will not judge you if you can't do that. If all you can do is have an interview that's online with somebody from the organization and study their website, you will be able to do the assignment. But I do want to encourage you to go to the next step if you can, if your situation permits. Lastly, I have been gradually learning that it makes a big difference. Sorry, the heat just went on in here and I can't control the temperature where I'm staying right now. So I'm at a conference. So I've noticed that my pedagogical approach is relatively different from a number of my colleagues, and that it seems to really help if I explain it up front. So Fuller Next has a new term for what we are trying to accomplish that is relatively unique. That is really what Fuller is about. We are trying to ensure that you have an indispensable education. That means that God has sent you here for a purpose. And now what we need to do is to make sure that we fulfill that purpose, to make sure that the education that you receive here is indispensable for you. Only you can be the judge of that. And what that means is that your education is your responsibility. I am here to guide you. I am here to bring all of the resources that I can offer you from many years of experience and study, but you get to decide what you use and what you don't. So let me give you a simple example of that. I often will have students say, with respect to the direct learning assignment, can I study my own organization? And what I respond with is, that's your choice. You get to decide if you will learn more by studying another organization or whether you will learn more by studying your own organization. Your education is your responsibility, and you are an adult. Now, what that means to me also is that I am not the grammar police. I am only going to comment on your capacity to write if it gets in the way of my capacity or your fellow students' capacity to understand what you're saying. So the Writing Center is an amazing place. If you have trouble writing in a way that clearly communicates what you're trying to say, I really suggest that you use them. But other than that, I know that for many of you, English is your second language, and it's up to you. If you're going to be a scholar, if that's the direction that God is calling you, is to get your PhD someday, you really may want to work on your writing capacity, and you really might want to work on your academic capacity in general. But if you are a pastor, or if you are called to other kinds of leadership in the church, you may not need to write perfectly, and regardless, it's your decision. So, number 3, I'm flexible. Part of what it means, I don't usually write my lateness policy because I really would prefer to explain it. So I know that you have complicated lives, many of you, if not all of you, and that you have many responsibilities. You have ministerial responsibilities, you have family responsibilities. If you need to be late on a paper, tell me. Tell me how late you're going to be. Tell me why you're going to be late. And within reason, I will deduct very few points or none at all, depending on your reason. I will never not accept a paper because you're late. Now, the one exception to that rule, and by the way, flexibility does mean that you need to communicate with me. You do need to tell me what's going on. Don't just disappear, or don't just not turn it in, right? Or don't just not turn it in on time. Let me know what's happening. We are working together here in relationship. Students have responsibilities, teachers have responsibilities. We work together. So, but there is one situation where I am less flexible, and that has to do with your accountability to each other as a learning community. That we really try to create learning communities at Fuller. And so your weekly prompts and comments are your participation in a learning community. And so if you don't get in your first comment until Saturday, no one will have the opportunity to learn from you. So you really need to get in that first comment by the end of the day on Thursday. I mean, it's due Wednesday at midnight, but as long as you get it in by the end of the day on Thursday, your fellow members of your group will have an opportunity to read it, to reflect on it, to pray about it before they write their comments. And so I will deduct points if you're late on your initial post, and if you don't do comments, you're not participating fully. So that really does matter, and I really do want that on time. Accessibility. I'm sad that we are doing all of this online, because I really think that there's something magical that sometimes happens between a professor and a class, or a professor and a student, that the Holy Spirit is engaged in that process, and that amazing insights can emerge. That's much harder online. It's not impossible, but it's much harder. And so I will have synchronized sessions that are optional every other week. We vary the time on those so that most of you can make them. At least some of the time. I would really encourage you to attend those. I would also encourage you, particularly if you can't attend those, if you want to make time with me personally. I will set up a time on Zoom with you and we can talk about what's ever on your heart and mind. And those synchronized sessions are also, I call them pan dulce in my office without the pan dulce. Because if you were coming to my office, all of you, I would have, Mexican sweetbread, which is pan dulce for you, which obviously I can't have when we're online. But we do have, through those optional synchronized sessions and through any time that you want to make with me personally, you do have access, and I would encourage you to use it. Carla, who is our TA, is a wonderful TA, knows what she's doing, and is also accessible to you if for some reason you'd rather talk to her. I won't be offended. So I hope that's helpful, and I so look forward to working with you this quarter. Thanks.